Hi, I'm Joseph Phillips. I'm the Director of Education at Instructing.com, and I'm the author of several books on management. In this series of YouTube videos, I'm sharing with you some concepts about value. Often we think about value, we think about you're going to save money, so you get a value, a deal. Well, really, in project management, value is something like we treasure it, we value the end result. So as we think about value in project management, we're thinking about the reason why we're doing the project, that we're creating value for the organization. And often that value comes in the idea of increasing revenue or reducing cost. So far in this series, we've talked about initiating a project with value, about planning, and now we're going to talk about execution, about how do we execute in order to achieve value. Well, in order to achieve value, we have to get to work. We have to do the thing that we've planned for. So project execution is we are executing, we are carrying out our plan. So recall that we had a plan for our project, that we planned all facets of our project, that we planned for scope and schedule and cost, quality, our resource management, communications, that we get into our risk planning and stakeholder engagement, procurement planning, that is what we're planning for. Well, now that we have these plans in a predictive project, now we have to carry out the plans. Now we get into execution. So I'm going to talk about some key things about executing our project in order to achieve value. Let's begin with scope. Scope planning is we are planning for what exactly will we create and will we not create. So when we talk about execution to create the scope, it's really not something that I do or you do as the project manager. This is our team. So who actually does the work in the project? Our team members. So our project team is carrying out the plan to create scope, the thing that is of value. So as we are doing project execution from a PM's point of view, we need to communicate with our team and to organize the work that we've identified in planning, in our scheduling, and we want to make certain that the work is done with quality. Quality is the totality of an entity that bears on its ability to satisfy stated or implied needs, and that's the definition from the American Society for Quality, ASQ. Well, that's kind of it's one of my favorite definitions because it's such a mouthful, but what does that mean? Well, quality is a conformance to requirements and that it's fit for use. So if we are executing our plan, if we're doing our scope execution and our schedule execution, and we want to make certain it's done with quality, that means the thing that we are creating is a conformance to requirements. That our project team, as they are doing the work, as they are executing our scope plan, our schedule plan, completing the activities to create scope, the work that they do has to be of quality. It has to conform to requirements. The things that they create have to be fit for use. So this is quality assurance, that we want to do the work correctly the first time. You probably have heard the idea that it's always more cost effective to do it right the first time than the second or third time, or to go back and try to find mistakes and fix mistakes after the fact. Always better to do the work right the first time. So that's QA, quality assurance. So our team is carrying out the scope according to our time, based on the schedule that we plan for these activities, in the order in which they should happen, and the conformance to requirements that they should happen. That all contributes to value. At the beginning of our talk, I said that value, we often think about it's a cost savings, that you're getting something of value. You're gonna buy a car because it's a really good value. Well, we're creating a project to create something of value, that there's some worth assigned to the thing that we're creating, whether that's a piece of software, or you're rolling out a new call center, or you're building a house. The end result is the value. The value proposition is I'm going to create this thing And this is what it takes to create it. This amount of time, this amount of money. So the money is in proportion, the value proposition, it's in proportion to what we are creating. If the cost to create this thing is greater than the value, then it's not worth it, right? Would you spend $1 million to create something that's going to save you $100,000? Well, probably not. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So whatever I create has to be in proportion to the value that it will bring. Now I stress that because it talks about cost. So in our project, the execution of our activities, the labor, the materials, the things we buy from vendors, all of the risk mitigation activities that cost some money, the more that the project costs, the size of the value can be diminished. The value proposition is in proportion to how much it costs to create. So in other words, the more the project costs, the more the value diminishes. So if we're going to create a piece of software and the software ends up, I'll just say $100,000, a little app that we're creating. So imagine a piece of software, $100,000 is what it costs to create. And we anticipate that will bring us, I'll just say $1 million in revenue. I'm just making this up, of course. The value of the project is $1 million, and originally the cost was $100,000. So we had a value of $900,000. But if the cost to create it goes up, we're going to earn less on the other end. So in other words, we still might earn gross $1 million. But if it cost us $500,000, $1 million minus $500,000 is we're netting now, instead of $1 million, we're netting $500K. So basically, the more you spend, the less valuable the end result of the project becomes. So we need some balance there. We need to protect the value, and we have to consider the value proposition. So here in execution, the team's carrying out the execution. They need to do the work right the first time, our quality assurance. So we have to protect the cost, and of course we have to protect our schedule, that we want the work to be done correctly the first time and in this order. And as I mentioned, the longer a project takes, the less profitable the project is going to be, the more expensive the project becomes. And the longer a project takes, it's going to introduce more issues and risk. So we try to compress that and get that done as reasonably as possible, as quickly as reasonably as possible. Now, we talk about execution and value. We also are talking about quality, and I've talked a little bit about quality already. But quality and execution is QA, that we want to do the work correctly the first time. So quality assurance, it's a management-driven activity, you being the project manager, to plan and assure that the work is being done properly. Quality control, which we'll talk about coming up, is that it's the inspection of the work, that we inspect it to make certain that it is of quality. So we'll talk about QC coming up. Here at execution, we're talking about QA. So in your organization, you may have a QA department or a QA group, or you might be using something like Lean or Six Sigma or an ISO program. So all of those are a way of saying, I can do this work over and over and over and get to the same repeated result. So it's not random, that I know that I can do the work this way and I'm going to end up with this result. So quality assurance is about doing the work correctly the first time. Now also here in execution, we have to think about our resource management. Resources are the people, but also the materials and equipment, the physical resources. But people have the biggest effect on value in the project. So your project team are the people that are closest to doing the work. So they're the people that have the biggest effect on the outcome of that work. So this is where we put a lot of trust and reliance on our project team to do the work correctly and of quality, and that it's of value. So in project execution, it's our team that creates the value, the actual thing that comes out of the project. It's this understanding of why it's so important to acknowledge the work that the team's done, to have a rewards and recognition system, whether that be a bonus, everyone likes a monetary reward, or if you're not allowed to do that, that you can give some shirts that have your logo on it, a coffee mug, a gift card, or even in your team meetings, calling people out for a job well done, giving some public recognition in your status reports. Do what you can to give a rewards and recognition. One of the things that I like to do is to do a thank you card. I've told this story many times. It's just really stuck with me. The importance of doing thank you cards is that way back early in my career, a counselor told me, write thank you cards early in your career when people help you. And so I remember this gentleman at a big organization that I was consulting, one of my first consulting gigs, really helped me and coached me and was just a really nice guy to work with. And I wrote him a thank you card. And that was that, and I went on to another project. Well, I came back years later to that organization on a different project, and I went over to see this individual. It's been, 4, 5, 6 years since I saw him. And I went into his office there, we're talking and just catching up. And I look over, and on the bulletin board there, he had that thank you card pinned to the bulletin board. And I had totally forgotten about it. And it was just like, oh, and so he kept that. I was like, oh, you kept that card. I gave that to you like 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was. And he told me, he goes, yeah, I kept it. You were the only person to ever write me a thank you card, the only person to ever say thank you. So it's important that people like to be told thanks. You like to be told thanks. You like to be told, I appreciate the work that you're doing, so does your team. So it's important to thank people for the work that they're doing on the project. That ties right into communication. So you're telling people thank you, that's great, that's communication, but it's also important to have an acknowledgement of all the different communication channels and how it relates to the project success. So we think about in a project, all of the different people, the different stakeholders that you need to talk to. So back in planning, we talked about who needs what information, when is the information needed, what's the expected modality, and then how do we secure and archive and maintain that communication. So now in execution, we are carrying out that plan to make certain the right people get the right message at the right time, and that you have a way of organizing that communication if you need to go back and pull from it again. So in communication, in execution, we are executing our plan. That's part of helping to coordinate what's happening in the project to get us closer and closer to the end result. Now, execution and risk, we're talking about carrying out our risk management plan. Recall that in planning, we identify risk, we do some analysis of risk, and then now we are carrying out our plan. If there's any risk responses that we need to carry out, if there are any mitigation or avoidance or transference, that all of those are being done here in execution. We're carrying out our risk management plan activities. And then after risk, we get into procurement. So we're actually doing the buying, the purchasing here in procurement. And that may be you, or it may be a contract office or a procurement office, but you're carrying out the plan of how will you procure and who will you procure from. And now we are actually doing the buying, the procuring, the fun part. And then we have stakeholder engagement, that we manage stakeholder engagement. Stakeholder engagement means that we are communicating with, we're assessing the attitude, the perspective, the fears and threats, even perceived threats about our project, and we're managing that relationship with all of our stakeholders. So that happens here in execution. We're carrying out our plan. We're executing our plan. And that's very closely related to communications. So value, we initiate the project in order to get value. We plan in order to achieve value. We can't plan forever. Thankfully, we have to get to work and get it done. So execution is the important part, that we are executing our plan in order to achieve value. All right, a lot of important information here in this short little video about obtaining value, about executing our plan in order to achieve value. If you like this lecture, you like this little video, leave a comment below, like and subscribe, share it on your social media networks, and leave me a comment below about other types of videos you'd like me to create. All right, thanks for your time and attention. Keep moving forward.